October of 2019, I quit my job. And so I was just like, it, I'm going for it.
There was someone new watching today and they're like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna give this a shot. What kind of reality check do they need?
You're not gonna make any money for at least 2 years. You better be ready for that. I remember like my first couple of years, I'm like, how do I know what to look for in this chart? I have no idea. And so I did the smart thing. I'm gonna quit my corporate job, but I'm gonna go back to the restaurant and work at night so I have some money coming in to pay my bills.
What was the switch from year one to year two where it became profitable?
I was a junkie with overtrading. So then I made my goal in the daily report card, like take a max of 2 trades a day. Once I started doing that, that's when like everything started to shift for me. And I was like, holy crap.
Welcome back everybody to Be The Trader. Today is gonna be a great day because I have a special guest. His name's Tanner, and you might know him as The Strong Trader. Tanner, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks for having me. Really
Absolutely, man, absolutely. Yeah. I met you at Traders for a Cause, and then I started following you, and then I just started to see you pop up more and more. I was like, you know what, man? I gotta bring him out. I gotta see him. We gotta definitely bring you on the show. So thank you for being here, brother.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me. I'm super stoked. I've watched your podcast so many times, so I'm like, I'm down. Let's do this.
Dude, thank you. Thank you for watching, man. I appreciate that. It's crazy when people say that. So thank you so much, man. Thank you. So get us started with, how did you get into the game and the world of trading?
Yeah, so, God, I got into it in like late 2018-ish. And like my friends were kind of just all investing at the time. It was like kind of right after college. I got out of college 2016. And my friends were just like buying stocks. So I'm just like, oh, okay, you know, what's a stock? Didn't really know anything about it. And they're all buying like shares of Tesla at the time, which was like a great buy back then. That was before it like exploded and everything, which was cool. So, you know, I bought some shares of Tesla. I'm kind of interested. And then I was working a corporate job and the Bitcoin boom happened. So ironically, it's like when Bitcoin hit 10K for the first time.
Okay.
And so I remember I was at work that day and I was all like, you know, oh, what is this? Like pulling up charts for the first time, looking at charts. I have no idea what I'm looking at, but like fascinated by it. And I remember I put like $1,000 in Bitcoin, and then like literally the next day, like it was, I made $1,000. And I was like, what the hell? I was like, this is crazy. I was like, okay. So that like kind of got me hooked initially. And then from there, I'm looking at charts and stuff like that here and there, kind of just trying to learn about it. And then I eventually got into the world of options because I came across, I hate saying this, but it's true. I came across Wall Street Bets.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Reddit, So I came across it and like they're, you know, talking about options and stuff like that. I had no idea what it was. And then I remember I was on the way to work and I bought my first call option in Netflix. And I made more on my way to work in that call option than I would for like my whole day at work. And I was like, okay, like what is this? I need to learn more about it and stuff like that.
That's
like I was
cool.
just juiced on
what
it.
A crazy experience though, right?
So that was like early 2019. And then I wanted to get like more into it and actually like learn. And like, you know, there's so much information out there on YouTube. And I'm a firm believer, like you can put together everything piece by piece if you want. But the reason there are courses and stuff is because it's like, it's structure. It's like we can put together structure. It's like, it's clean, it's organized. So depending on the route you want to go down, like first of all, you have to have interest in whatever you're in. So like, it's really interesting because like you're in like the small cap world and like, I have never ever been interested in that. It's just not something that really jived with me. I kind of just jived with options right away and I kind of just stuck with it. And I think this is actually something a lot of traders like struggle with in the beginning is they're hopping around too many facets of like, I want to try this, wait, I want to try this because this isn't working. And then they're trying too many things. And so like one good thing for me is like I found options and I just stuck with it. And I was like, I'm just doing this. I like it. I'm buying calls, I'm buying puts.
Is it because you knew all the other options or is it because that's the only thing you knew?
I just think like options were like my drug right away where I was like, this is it. I was like, I love this. I was like, I don't want to touch the other stuff. I love this. So I was just super juiced on it right away. And then in May of 2019, I took a course.
Okay.
So I actually came across, you know, just the Instagram algorithm did its thing. And I came across this group called Appenicus Holdings.
Okay.
And so I still trade with them to this day. And my mentor is the owner of it. His name is Kyle. And it was just like, I just knew like that was my home right away. And he was just like really transparent with me right away about everything, super honest and open. And he's just like really led the journey for me. And that's how I was like, okay, like I like this. I want to get into this. I want to learn more about it. I took his course. He had a course at the time. You know, and I remember like getting my notepad out being like, oh, I'm doing this. I'm getting into it. And so I have a really unconventional story of how I went full time because I've always been like an entrepreneur and like a risk taker.
Okay.
So like even before I got into trading, I was like, I owned a gym for a little bit, kind of didn't work out. I tried to start an app with these guys, didn't work out. Tried to do drop shipping, didn't work out.
Yep.
So I was always trying to do something entrepreneurial. And once I took that course, I was like, okay, like I think this is it. Like I want to be a trader. Like I want to get into trading. I want to do
Yep.
it. And so May of 2019, I took the course, and October of 2019, I quit my job. And so I was just like, fuck it, I'm going for it. So it was like super ballsy and risky. I had like 50K saved up at the time.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, I have some money. I was only 26. So I was like, you know, worst comes to worst. Like I think I had a girlfriend at the time, but like I was like, I don't got house, kids, family.
Yeah.
I didn't have like any overhead. I could take
perfect
the
time.
risk.
That's the
you know?
perfect time.
So I was like, screw it. The other thing that helped me a lot actually also is I've worked in the restaurant industry a lot of my life too. So even when I worked corporate, I worked at the restaurant like 1 day a week, always in the back pocket. It's been a restaurant I've worked at since I was like a kid.
Yep.
So it was like always kind of there. And like I was smart where I was like, okay, trading's something I need to do during the day, but I still need income coming in because I know I've talked to like at least enough people at this point where they're like, you're not going to make any money for at least 2 years. You better
Yeah.
be ready for that, like a minimum. And so I did the smart thing where I was like, I'm going to quit my corporate job, but I'm going to go back to the restaurant at night
Yes.
and work at night so I have some money coming in to pay my bills. And you know, I'm 26, I'm single, I don't have a lot of overhead. It costs me like maybe
Exactly.
$1,500 to
Yes,
like live.
that's what I'm saying.
So I'm like, okay, so like I basically like that was my plan. First year, didn't make any money trading.
Yep.
But I was like, okay, I kind of paid my bills and stuff like through what I was doing. I was kind of starting to learn. It was cool. Second year, made like a little bit of money, but not really. And then like started like my expenses and stuff started to kind of add up. And I didn't really have strategy or like really understand what I was looking for. Because that's a big thing too, is like the first couple of years, it's just like, I'm trying to figure out like what I'm doing. I have no idea. I remember like my first couple of years, I'm like, why don't they have a playbook on like what playbooking is? Like any of this stuff. I'm like, I had no idea. I'm like, wait, how do I know what to look for in this chart? And like having everyone be like, well, that's for you to determine. And I'm like, no, tell me. And it's like, you know, you don't develop that type of thinking of like, trading's your own business. It has to make sense to you of like what it is for you. And the thinking doesn't really come until like almost like year 3, right? It's like it takes
You got
time.
that screen time.
You need the screen time. So, you know, I was working at the restaurant at night, doing that first year. Second year is still kind of hard. So like I remember I got like I was really into beer at the time. So I like got another job at like a brewery and I was like doing beer tending and stuff. And so I was doing that. So I was working like kind of like 40 hours a week. So it's like I was trading full time,
Yep.
but it was in the sense of like, I was putting like full-time effort during the day into it and trading in the morning, but I was like, I need to still have money and income come in. And I had some savings. So it was like, I did it smart
Like
in that
supplementing,
sense.
yep.
Correct. Yeah, I did it smart in that sense. And then like about 2.5 years, 3 years in, I finally got profitable. And that when I was like, okay, cool. Like it's starting to kind of click. I kind of had some playbook setups. I started to understand where I had an edge as an options trader. I was like, I'm good at earning setups. I like earning setups. And kind of stuck with that. And then my third year, I was like, okay, I actually like made some money. And then like my fourth year, which just finished up, I kind of realized like midway through my third year that I really only had edge during earnings season. And I needed something that was a little bit more consistent. Because when it wasn't earnings season, you know, it's like, it's not happening all the time.
I was about to say that, yeah.
Yeah, it's not happening all the time. I was just like up and down.
Yep.
I was like, wait, like I don't really have edge here. I have edge here. And so that was frustrating to me because it's like, I feel like I make all this progress and then I would take subpar setups and just like blow a month or something. And I'm like, dude, like, why are you doing that? You know, it was just frustrating. So then finally I got into futures because my coach was getting into futures also at the time. So I was like, okay, I'll try this. And I finally, basically the past 8 months, have really only exclusively focused on futures. I still trade options here and there, but this is also something kind of like I talked about in the beginning where I knew if I was gonna get into futures, I had to commit to it. And not be like so like hoppy back and forth strategy wise. It's like, okay, take the step back, understand it's gonna take some time. And so then I did that. And then this past year, like, you know, I've always had like growth as a trader, which has been cool, but I'm still in the growing phase.
Yep.
And when I got into futures, it brought out all of my bad habits. Like every bad habit I have as a trader. Because this was crazy is I
Like
traded
the beginning bad habits you had and they
everything.
came back, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
like it just everything I realized I didn't have in me bad habit wise because when it came to trading options, like I would trade a cash account a lot and like as a protection for myself, I would only keep like 10K in there.
Yep.
So it's like I wouldn't even have like the 25K like PDT rule, because like also my size at the time is like I trade with like maybe like 1,500, like $2,000 max,
Yep.
like per trade. So I was like, I don't need to have 25K in there and then just like maybe blow it like insane. So that, and trading with a cash account, you know, it's going to dwindle the cash and you're only going to have a certain amount of cash to trade the next few trades you have until the next day.
Yep.
And so that protected me in terms of over trading, but I never really like realized it. And then when I got into futures and just instant settlement, I realized I was like, holy shit, I'm kind of like a junkie. And I had like I was just taking so many trades, realizing I'm like just prone to like not really following my setups here and there. You know, like I have setups with Edge that I know, but I just found myself just taking trades outside the wheelhouse too often.
Yep.
And so I've always been big on like journaling, reviewing. I've always done that type of stuff from the get-go. But as a trader, it took me a long time to realize like I need multiple processes in order to protect me for who I am as a trader, because otherwise I'll go off the rails. And so this is kind of where powerlifting comes in, and like my brand and the idea is I started Strong Trading like 2 or 3 years ago. And originally it's just like, I wanted to connect trading and lifting. Is like lifting has been a huge part of my life, like a big passion of mine. And there's a lot of parallels from lifting that you can bring over to trading.
Yep.
And I wanted to kind of showcase that and like talk about that and like build that through my brand, Strong Trading. So like, I guess a good example is, so in the sport of powerlifting, it's focused on 3 main lifts.
Okay.
It's squat, bench, and deadlift. And you're basically competing to put up your best total between the 3, and you're competing against other people in your weight class.
Okay.
So when you're doing this on like meet days, what it's called, competition day, you know, you're maxing out, you're going all out. It's like, it's balls to the wall, like go for it. But when you're training and leading up to it, to that day, you're following like a strict program and everything's super process oriented. So I've been competing in powerlifting for 7 years now, but I've been lifting weights for 13 years.
Yep.
And in 13 years, I've only taken 2 full weeks off, like in a consecutive stretch, like never more than that.
Yep.
Because at this point, it's just a part of who I am and what I do. It's what I love. And I was like starting to think about that as a trader. I'm like, okay, well, I have this already built in me. It's like a big form of discipline, whether I realize it or not. It's just part of who I am. I'm like, how do I grab that and bring it over to trading? Because I already have that part of my life, like working. Like, how do I bring that over to trading? So then I started really thinking about the concept of it. I'm like, okay, well, what I do in powerlifting and training and stuff like that is I follow a process of my program. That's what I do. And so in powerlifting, when you're doing like the programming and stuff, you'll go through like blocks of training where it's like, it might be, you're doing a whole block of like, you're trying to like focus on some muscle growth. So you're doing like sets of 6 to 8 on everything. You know, you're not really doing like 1 rep maxes like in those blocks in those period. And no matter how good you feel, you have to just follow the structure because you're thinking of a macro oriented goal. I'm going to compete in 4 months, 5 months. It's like, that's what I'm looking to do. And so that has always been, like I said, ingrained in me. It was like, I go in the gym every day. I know what I'm doing. I don't care if I feel like doing something else. It's like, no, you follow your plan of what you're supposed to do for lifting.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, I know how to do that. Let me do that with trading. It's like, I need to like I need to bring process oriented, that part of my life over to trading and think like, how can I be a process oriented trader? And so really, once I started connecting those dots and understanding that and thinking about it more, I realized that with my trading, I need certain tools and stuff in order to become more of a process-oriented trader. And, you know, journaling, reviewing is great. Like, everyone needs to do it. You have to know what you need to do. But for me, I needed more layers than that. And I started mentoring some people about like 1.5 years ago. And I've kind of developed some of these processes over time. And I've taken stuff from various people, my mentor, stuff from Lance, and like stuff from SMB. And I've basically kind of combined all of this into like what I've done on my self trial and error and stuff I've implemented for my clients. And like, they all give me the same feedback. They're like, these processes that you're doing, like, first of all, it's crazy how many people don't even like create a plan or journal or anything. It's actually pretty wild. Like, when you talk to some of these people, I'm like, wait a second, okay. You want to be this consistent trader, but you don't record any of your data. You don't make a plan for the day. You're not looking at any of this. I'm like, what are you, just throwing shit at the wall and just hoping like, oh, eventually it'll stick? It's like, no, like, you need detail, you need data, you need all these things. And so I started playing around with a bunch of different stuff. And now kind of what I use is, I call it like the big 3. So also powerlifting is squat, bench, deadlift. So this is kind of like where I derive this from, is like the big 3. So it's like in trading, to be like, for me, like what I really practice on myself that helped me become more process oriented was implementing 3 daily things that I do, and it's just non-negotiable as a trader. It's the daily report card, which I got from Lance, SMB
Yep.
guys. It's individual trade review / journaling, which, you know, I've just
Yep.
like kind of compiled and made that process over the years. And the last one is playbooking. And playbooking is unique also because with playbooking, the way I playbook is I look at like what's like the easiest money setup of the day based on your system and your strategy that you're
Right.
trying to build. So it's like, I don't care if the small cap stock ripped into the sun.
Right.
It's like, that's not part of my playbook what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to see like where was the best pullback to VWAP setup intraday during a specific time frame of where I'm trying to trade also, and how did that look for the day. And so that's another part I think is really interesting, a lot of people don't do, is you can build a trading business around like how you want to structure it. It's like, I don't want to trade in the afternoon. I just want to trade in the morning. Some people only can trade in the afternoon. Some people only want to trade pre-market. It's like, there's no one way to skin the cat in this game. And once I kind of just started like realizing that and all those things and kind of like putting them together, like that is what started to make me more process oriented, like I said. So I have those big 3 things, and like honestly the biggest one that's helped me really become more process oriented, because like I said, I did the trade review and journaling all the time, I did the playbooking, and that was helping, but I was like, I needed one more layer. And the daily report card has like probably changed like everything for me in terms of process, because the daily report card, the whole goal of it is to focus on like a process oriented goal. So for me, kind of rewind like what we were talking about, I was a junkie with overtrading.
Yep.
I was really, really bad with it. I always overtraded, and when it came to overtrading, I was like, okay, this is my process-oriented goal I need to fix and work on. So then I made my goal in the daily report card, like take a max of 2 trades a day. And that was hard because I was like, oh shit, I gotta be selective.
Yep.
But once I started doing that and then grading myself on pretty much just how I'm doing that, and then doing my individual trade review and logging, and then doing the playbooking,
Yep.
that's when like everything started to shift for me, and I was like, holy crap, like I'm becoming the trader I've always wanted to be. I just needed to like implement these tools to do it. And then like I said, like people I've been mentoring, like they were like, yo, this is helping me so much. Like I can't even believe I wasn't doing this type of stuff, but it's like, you don't know until you know.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a lot.
Jesus, that's literally your entire story without one breath being taken.
I know, I was just flowing, dude.
No, I
was
love
flowing.
it. I love it.
just
So
flowing.
I need to take you back a little bit though, because
Just rewind,
it sounds like from just hearing your story. So for the first 2 years, you know, it's like it makes sense. Like it's a struggle at first, then it becomes somewhat a little bit of gains here,
Yeah.
and then you get profitable, and then you go to futures. And then futures, when you dealt with that problem of overtrading, which is such a cool idea, that you didn't face the problem in options because you were trading cash. And so with cash, you had a limited amount of trades because you have to wait for it to settle, which for all of you who don't know, it's also a trick that you can do. If you have under 25K, you can open up cash accounts. Let's say you have 10,000, you can open 10,000 cash account, and you can trade that until it settles, right? So you can take multiple day trades if you trade real small, right? That makes sense. So it's just a way around that. But at the end of the day, you were not realizing that was preventing you from even experiencing what overtrading could be.
Yeah.
You start overtrading. So I wanted to know though, when you start overtrading, were you able to like switch to futures and maintain profitability right away? Was there some kind of like volatility to kind of get some adjustment? Or like, were you so profitable, but you just traded really small and you just got lucky with all the overtrading? Like, I'm just trying to get a feel of what happened there.
Yeah, so I think like all my overtrading with options really, like I said, it wasn't really like a problem.
Yep.
And then when I switched to futures, like I saw the problem right away, because like I'd have tons of times where like I'd be up some money and then I just
Yep.
like start overtrading and I'm like, oh shit, I just gave back my whole day.
Yep.
Or I gave back a week or something, and I'm
Right.
like, oh crap, like this is like an issue. And it took me through like mental hell, like up and down, like especially like the first couple months in futures is like, that's the cool thing, is I had like strategy and idea of like kind of how I was already like wanted to trade based on my options, because like the technical setups were like the same, it was just a different product.
Yep.
But I had to really understand, like I said, I have like a demon in me, and I was like, I didn't realize that as
Yeah.
much until I dove into futures, and it just allowed me to be like, holy crap, like you'll puff the magic dragon until you pass out, basically. I'm like, dude, how am I gonna do this? So yeah, like at first it was super rocky.
Yep.
And like, don't get me wrong, I'm still like, there's times with futures right now still where like I will crush like 3-4 weeks.
Yep.
And then the daily report card's so helpful because like I have a day where, you know, if I don't put up an A or a B on it and I slip, sometimes that'll trickle into the next day and I'll get too comfy. And then boom, I have like a big, big fat red day and a big F on my report card. And I'm just like, I just gave back a week, you know, and that's frustrating. So it's like, I think when you're trying to become more focused on process and really understanding what you're trying to fix as a trader, it's never going to just be black and white and like cure overnight.
That's so true.
It's like, it's so much work every day to not let that type of trader come out. And so like one actually super cool thing is I have a client right now who his daily report card goal is just to not get frustrated if the trade goes wrong. That's it. That's the only goal.
What a cool goal.
So it's like,
but you know, you have to be able to pass that.
You have to. And so for him, he's like, he grades himself on the day if he like screwed up on the trade and he's like, gets frustrated. Because he knows once he gets frustrated, it starts like what's called like the domino effect. It's like one domino falls, then you want to break this rule, then this rule, and then before you know
all
it's
cascading. All of a sudden you're trading some random thing.
Yeah. You're like,
all of a sudden you're on Coinbase trading Bitcoin.
You're like, what is going on? Yep.
Hey, we wouldn't be able to do these face-to-face interviews if it wasn't for our sponsor, Cobra Trading. So if you could just give them a few seconds of your time, we'd really appreciate it. Cobra Trading is the go-to broker for day traders and short sellers. And I'm not the only one saying this. In fact, Benzinga awarded Cobra Trading as the go-to broker for short selling. They have a heavy focus on direct market access order routing, so you have the fastest execution. They have some of the best locate prices and availability. They also have amazing customer service. I've experienced many different brokers, and it's why I use them every single day and why I'm proud to have them as our sponsor. Sign up now by clicking the Be the Trader referral link below and earn 1 free month of software with Cobra and 25% off all commissions. Now let's get back to the show. You know what? What was your struggle though? Because in the first year, you said, you know, it was just a losing year, which is totally fine. That's how it happens. I lost for 3 years. And what was the switch from year 1 to year 2 where it became somewhat profitable? And like, what did you do? Like, what was the struggle that was holding you back? Was there a struggle? Was it multiple things?
I think it's just understanding the first like kind of year or two. It just like, you don't have like I said, you don't have a concept of like what playbooking is, like what to look for, what makes sense to you. Like anyone can get lucky on trades, but to try to understand like why the setup worked. That's when I started to like kind of have that, I guess, switch, like flip in my brain to be like, oh, I kind of have some edge here because of XYZ. And like without documenting and reviewing that, like I wouldn't know. And again, it's like there's no giant rule book on how to do this. So writing that down and being like, oh, this is my power earnings gap setup. You know, it's like something.
What do you write down, Tanner? Because I don't know what to write down because here's a stock. I'm supposed to know.
So everything, everything you write down, everything from like details of what did the setup look like? Can you compare that to another time you found that setup? Actually, I remember like one of my best trades. It's funny because looking back on it, like the options were really bad. So it's like, I don't like saying this is my best, like one of my best trades, but the setup wise was really good. I remember, like I'll never forget this. So I remember Chipotle had earnings. This was like, I think 3 or 4 years ago. And the night before they had earnings, like it was a setup where it was gapping up overnight from earnings and it was gapping just basically into all-time highs. And I was like, okay, I think I've seen this setup before where if we gap above all-time highs, then we instantly get some buying at the open, like right away, and like we don't really get a pullback or anything. It's like, it's just a price discovery type setup where it's like, it's a long, and it's a gap and go, right? And so I remember like seeing that and being like, okay, like let me look back in the charts and see if I can find this and back test it. And so I remember finding it, I think on Chipotle also, like same thing. And it was something where it worked like that, like just like that. And it's funny because as you get deeper, you'll realize like it's not always going to work like that. It kind of depends how we open and stuff like that. But I happened to be lucky where I back tested it. It did what I thought it was going to do. So the next morning I was like, I'm ready. Let's do this. And sure enough, it did exactly what I thought it would do. And I was like, I remember I made like 4K in like a minute and I was like, I'm a genius. Like I got it. Like it's unlocked. I got it. I'm done. And I know.
I know.
You know that feeling? And I remember my coach at the time, he's like, okay, nice trade. He's like, but did you look at the options on these? And then like, they were like, the spread was like 20% on it. It's like, if I would have taken, if I would have had to stop out, it's like the spread was so wide, it would have just like instantly smoked me. He's like, so from like a risk point of view, he's like, you're better off just trading equity of this. But like Chipotle at that time was like $1,700 a share or something. So I was like, I don't want to buy one, like one or two shares of Chipotle. So
that's interesting. You know what's crazy is I love it. You said like, a little bit of luck, but at the end of the day, sure. Like what you did is you prepared and you had a plan. Now, was there a couple holes in your plan according to your coach at the time?
Yeah.
Yes, there was. But you also don't know what you don't know until you make those mistakes, until you grow, right?
Yeah.
So I love that you shared that, because that's what people don't understand, is that even though you win, even though you have success, it doesn't mean that you know everything. It doesn't mean that, that you can just quit tomorrow. Quit everything you do and just say, I'm just going to put it all in on the next trade. It just doesn't happen that way. Can you remember a time when you were trading and you were complete opposite of this? You were just in the gutter and you were just like failing. Did you ever get like down on yourself where you're just like, I'm never going to make this? Like, did you ever get into that aspect of your mind? Could you share that?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I think, first of all, like this career is like the hardest. It's the hardest thing in the world. Hardest. And me, even in year 5 right now, there's still times where I'm like, dude, I don't know. Like, I'm like, this is hard, bro. I'm like, it's hard, bro. It's hard. So like,
I agree.
I think the one thing that has really helped me in terms of like mindset is I just got into entrepreneurship, like, I guess young enough and was like interested enough where I've just heard so many stories of people who are like, you have to like be at rock bottom basically and just keep going.
Yeah.
And so there's tons of times where I was just like literally just in pain. I was just like, I remember like the first time I had a month where I lost like almost 10K. And like for me, that was like a lot of money.
Yes.
And I was like, dude, this is a lot. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I just felt like shit. And I just always, I luckily have like mentors and people in my life. So I think one good piece of advice is like, seek out help and seek out mentorship. Seek out people that are going to lift you up, allow you to keep going, keep pressing. Because without not even just my coach Kyle, but like other people in my life, other mentors in my life, the owner of the restaurant I've worked at forever.
Yep.
He's a great entrepreneur, owns multiple restaurants, real estate business, all that stuff. He always talks about, he's like, like you're going to get smacked in the face. He's like, it's going to happen. I remember actually one time I went to him like in the beginning of my trading, like I think my second year, and I was like, I don't know, I lost this much. He's like, you're going to lose at something you're like really trying at. He's like, but you have to get on the saddle and just keep going. And so like the words keep going are always in my head. So it's like, it's good and bad because I've gotten desensitized sometimes to money where I'm like, oh, I lost 4K, doesn't matter, keep going. And it's just like, but that'll happen like multiple times or something. And I'm like, oh shit, keep going. But doing things like recenter yourself, kind of bring yourself back down to earth. I'm just so big on habits and routine that when I do get in those really bad mental states and bad mindsets, I'm like, okay, what's gonna like recenter me? And like for me, like lifting always helps, obviously. It's just like a big part of my life. But like one habit I do every single day, almost every day, is I read 10 pages and I walk. So I'm like grateful enough to live by the beach. I live pretty close to the beach. Yeah. And it's literally a part of my process every day where like I trade, I make breakfast, and I leave my house, get away from the screens, and I read 10 pages in my car and I walk like by the beach.
10 pages.
10 pages.
Of something. Anything.
Something. Normally it's always a trading book or a personal development book. I don't really read like novels or anything. It's like, it's always stuff like that because I've always just been interested in that. Like I've always been interested, like I said, entrepreneurship, stuff like that. But it's funny actually because I was talking with my girl about this where whether me realizing it or not, doing that every day has helped me like stay like grounded and more level-headed.
100%.
And that has gotten me through and like kept my brain to be like, okay, well now you're recentered, like now you can go on with the rest of your day and just feel good. And so if you having some sort of like habit or routine that you can do to really like detach yourself and come back to baseline, it's something you have to practice every day, even when you're like at the highest of the high. So it's like, if I have a really good day, I'm gonna go walk and read. If I have a shit day, I'm still gonna go walk and read. It's just kind of what I do. And I think like that's the best way to keep your mind like sharp to kind of reset for the next day and be like, I need to keep going. I need to keep going.
I love that you shared that, man, because so many people will just sit at their desk, because I used to do this. I used to sit at my desk all the time and just stay there, and I'd just be like livid and then get upset. And then, but then when I started taking walks, same thing. It's like it changes everything. Like get up, go do something else, recentered. And that's what you said, like recentering yourself it just gives you that re-energy, because this is hard.
It's super hard.
And that's what you said at the beginning. This is so hard. Can you tell people the reality of what to expect if there was someone new watching today and they're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. What kind of reality check do they need? Like, what would you tell them?
I would tell them it's going to take way longer than you think. Like way, way longer than you think. I remember like when I quit my job, I was like, oh, I'm going to be making over 6 figures my third year. I'm going to be crushing it. And then like, I got to my third year and I was like, oh, I'm not close to that.
It's hard.
And so like, it's going to take a lot longer than you think. And it's like, I don't want to like ever discourage people, because I always want people I always want people the best for people. Like it's like, I want you to like go for it. I'm the type of person to be like, quit your job, go pursue that skill, go take the chance on this, go take the risk on this, because it's like, at the end of the day, we only have this like one life that like we want to do what we want to do. That was a big thing for me too with trading when I got into it, is like, I wanted to be able to go to the gym at 10 in the morning. That was like a big goal of mine. I was just like, I don't want to be at my office. Like I want to go to the gym at 10 a.m. And so building things around that, like that was my goal. It was always like build my schedule. So it's like, think about like what motivates you to do like the skill or whatever endeavor you're trying to do. So it's like, if you're trying to become a trader and you want to get into it, you need to realize, number one, it's going to take way longer than you think. Number two, like it's going to be something that's going to be very taxing on you mentally.
Yep.
And ideally, if you can have another source of income, it's highly, highly recommended, because doing it just only trading and having no other money come in, it's just too stressful.
It's almost impossible.
It's almost like you just put too much, you don't have enough mental capital to do that, because you're putting pressure on yourself and stuff. Some of my best trading is when I've been like focused more on strong trading and like doing podcasts, or like trying to like, how can I build the brand? How can I network more? How can I do this? And make trading honestly in the morning a smaller part of my life.
Yep.
And then as a byproduct, I'm like, oh shit, I'm trading so much better. It's like, because it's just how it works.
Yes.
So, understand it's going to take a lot longer than you think. Have some sort of other income where you can like be a little bit less stressed.
Yes.
And really just adapt that like growth mindset of like, just keep going. And then like, again, what kind of tools can you implement? And I also think always seeking a mentor is like the best thing you can do too. I've done that since the beginning. There's some people out there who are like, oh, I don't have like the money for it. And I'm like, but you have money to go lose $800 on that trade right away. I'm like, why can't you invest that towards a mentor who's maybe going to help you for a couple months?
Yep.
So like, that is something always like, for me, it's been a no-brainer. I have a trading coach. I have a powerlifting coach. Like, it's like, like be coached by people that are doing the things that you want to become good at, and let them guide you.
And the other thing with the coach though is, it's hitting me even harder now. It's just like the idea that a coach isn't you. So they're not going through that emotion that you're fighting and trying to take the lesson. They just see what the lesson, they see what you're going through, and they can get you through that much quicker than you by yourself. Especially like when I first started, I'm sure you had a mentor, but if you, I don't know if there's a period where you didn't, but if at all, you probably experienced the idea of like not realizing that, oh, this was a good trade, I'm just gonna lose. Or this is 3 really great trades, you're just bad beat. It just happens.
Yeah,
it's just how it is.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have someone talking to you about that, oh man, like you might just be chasing your tail for a while, because you're never going to be happy. Yeah. And the whole thing that you just said, Tanner, about like you start focusing more on other things, and then made trading more like this in terms of like the like, and what I got from that is like just like the whole idea of like trading's everything. Like I'm a trader only. It kind of let you be more focused on being selective and being a better trader, which is improved on your trading. And then at the end, which is, I love hearing that, because I think, tell me if you think this is a similar experience for you, but I feel like you have to at first grind, just learn as much as you can. And you do got to kind of just put all the time and kind of have to have it as your main focus, right? But then once you kind of get the groove, you'll know that part where you know what to find, you know what to look for, you know your setup. at that point, I think for me personally, and hearing your experience, it sounds like it's the same. That's when you want to kind of like not be all about trading, because you know exactly when you need to be about trading and when you shouldn't be.
Yes, exactly. And it's honestly, so one thing my mentor has told me always, Kyle's always like, he's like, you know, like too much now, kinda, where he's like, now it's a process of elimination. He's like, how can you remove? How can you do less? And so that was a big thing for futures, where I was just like, I'm like, oh, well, buy this high, sell this, like, I'm like thinking all these strategies. He's like, let's just pull it back to like one setup that you know how to do and only really look for that, because you seem to know how to like see that almost every single day. Now let's just really think about the details of like, how does that look? Like what, and this is where playbooking helps a lot. It's like how does that setup look? What time is it happening in? Because like a great example, like I said, I trade pullback to VWAP all the time.
Yep.
One of my like main go-to setups. I also, like when I playbook it and I'm looking for that easy money setup at the end of the day and I'm reviewing, I'm only looking during a certain time criteria of what I'm trying to build the system around. Can VWAP, pullback to VWAP happen right at the open? Yes. Can it happen later intraday? Yes, it can. But for my trading business of like the life I want to live and what I'm trying to build, how can I find it within there and what does it look like? And so like for me, like, I don't give away all my sauce, but like, you know, like I find like there's a certain time I want to wait for it. And then like within that time, once it kind of hits like on my phone, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to start looking for it. And I wouldn't have known that unless it's just literally me observing and being like, okay, how does this work really good here? Or how does this not work? And so again, just getting super detailed in that one setup, it just allows me to be like, oh, wow, look, the market's ripping into the sky. Okay, it's not near VWAP, I don't really care. And so it's like, you know.
It also makes it.
Yes, breathe. Breathe, like sit back, chill, breathe.
It makes it relax. Like it becomes easier when you like focus on
One
process.
setup.
And the process. Yeah, the process.
Yeah, the process, that's it.
You know, you said what you just said earlier too is removing things. Like that right there is like so many people are trying to learn all these indicators, all these things, all these, because they're just trying to grab. I want to find the one thing that's going to make me profitable.
Yeah.
And they could be in a spot where they know too much already, and now it's time to eliminate and go back to one thing. So what's also interesting is when you said that is how you focus on your setup, which is a pullback to VWAP, and you have a specific time that you don't want to share, which is fine. But at the end of the day, what's cool about what you said is nuances.
Yeah.
Like you didn't use that word, but that's what you're saying. Like you start to learn the nuances of the setup and how it evolves and how it changes and how it becomes better during this time and how it's not better in this time. And you can only do that if you eliminate.
Yeah. And that's really, that's what like nuances is the best word. And actually I heard that a lot from Lance, because like as Lance and I got tight, he would tell me, he's like, what are like the specific nuances of like your pullback to VWAP setup? How does it pull back to VWAP? Like what time does it pull back to VWAP? Like is there certain scenarios where it overshoots and then like it reclaims quick and you know you can take it? Another thing I do like is I use like for, let's just use SPY for example. I use SPY VWAP, but I also use ES VWAP. It's like, yeah, I'm trading ES like futures, ES VWAP, but I have certain scenarios and things that I have noticed and playbooked where I'm like, okay, if we break down one and then not the other, I can't just instantly be like, okay, now we're short. It's like we might hold the second one really well. So then my eyes will like shift. So it's like I'm using, but that's only from me just like with screen time and documenting it and being like, okay, like it was really apparent today that we noticed that when we pulled back, we broke down one VWAP, we didn't break down the other.
Yeah.
So in a scenario like this in the future, when you see this happen, don't be so quick to like flip sides and be like, oh, I'm going short. It's like, see the reaction to the second VWAP, because they'll be stacked a lot of the time. Sometimes they'll be in confluence. Like, and so, but again, the only way I've known this is like through screen time and playbooking and like looking into it. And so that's why also it's like, if you don't know how to think like that and look at things like that, like that's what's hurting your development more than anything, I think. It's like, 'cause you're never gonna find holy grail. It's like, it's trading. There's no just like, especially if you're a discretionary based trader, you're not like a quant trader, or like an algo driven trader. It's like,
99% of us are discretionary based at some, and for most of it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, unless you're doing that, it's like, you know, you're not going to know the nuances of it and the little things that be like, oh, this is doing exactly what I need to see it to do. I know what to do here. I've practiced this. I've managed it. And then like the best feeling ever as a trader, like this is like when it clicks, I think. The best feeling is when you see a setup that you've practiced and you study, you take it, you know it should do XYZ. You manage it, and then like maybe it continues or whatever, or it trails you out, and you go, that was a good trade. It's like, that's it, dude. That's like the best feeling. That's when you know you're like, I can do this shit.
And you don't feel, when you enter the trade, you're also not feeling any type of, you're not even caring what it does.
Yeah, no.
You're not even thinking about it. You're just letting it do its thing. Like whether it stops out or goes up, like either way, it's a good trade. And it feels neutral. That's when, that's when I would say, quote unquote, you just said you made it. But I would say it's also very fleeting.
Yeah.
It can be very fleeting.
Yeah.
So you always got to be on top of your game, which is why you have a routine, which is why you explain so many times. You go to the gym, you also try to translate to your trading, where you always do the same thing, where you read 10 pages and you go reset, right? And you do your walk. You do all these things so you can stay at your peak.
Yes.
And otherwise, it's so easy for any trader. I don't care how long you've been trading. You can easily slip.
Oh yeah.
And even though you know everything that you know right now, you can know it all, but you won't execute it all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You could easily slip. So that's why it's so important to have a routine.
Yep, 100%. Once you get in the bad mindset, and that domino effect starts to happen, that's when I get like the most afraid and like scared. I would say, even still now to this day, it's like, because I know 1 to 2 days can like ruin my whole month. I know that. And like some people are like, oh, how could you let that happen? But it's like, I'm prone to that, and I know that about myself. And so that's when like, even doing things like, I got this from Lance actually. So with the daily report card, one of the segments I have in the template that I've created is, it has your temperature, like taking a temp check.
Yeah.
So like in the pre-market, I always like, I have an Oura ring. I don't know if you know what this is or ever use it,
I do
but
know.
yeah. So like, it has like a readiness, for people that don't know, it's like, it has like a score which like, builds off your sleep, and it like determines how like ready you are for the session. And so in my temp check, I always write in the morning, like basically, how am I feeling, number one? I'm like, oh, I feel pretty rested, feel pretty good. Or if I slept like shit and didn't sleep well, and my readiness score is ever below 70, thankfully enough, I've already gotten like smoked and hit in the face so many times, or when it is below 70, I have to be like, now like caution, red flag. So my brain goes into like conservative, like be careful mode, be super careful. Versus if it's really good, I'm like, okay, I'm alert, I'm ready, because I've just seen too many times, based on literally from data, if my readiness score is below 70, I don't care if I like think I feel okay. It's like I'll lose money. Like I'll like, doesn't always happen like that, but like,
no,
I know like mentally I'm like, I have to be alert versus being offensive. That's kind of the big thing, is like when to know when to play defense or offense based on how I feel, not like what the market's showing me. And that's a really hard push and pull, I think, as traders.
That reminds me of all the times that I was either frustrated from either a conversation with a buddy, maybe me and my wife got into something that day, maybe my mother gave me some bad news. On all those single days, it's probably a 99.9% chance I'm going to lose money. And I know that for myself. So with the fact that I don't trade anymore when that happens. Because like what you just said reminded me, it took me back, and I was like, oh my God, I remember every time I was so upset in the morning, I try to reset and get to the computer, right really open and start trading. I don't care who you are, those emotions will come out and take over your trades.
Yeah.
So look, Tanner, I'm very curious, man, before we start to wrap this up, I want to ask you one more question, man.
Yeah.
And then I would love for you to share with people how they can find out more information about you. But that is, if you had to start over today and you know what you know now, what would you start doing right away as your like first 3 steps?
Oh gosh.
To at least get here a little bit faster.
First 3 steps, I mean, I'd start with number one, like finding a mentor. That'd probably be the first thing I would do. Like, or at least like take a course right away. Is like, don't just throw money at the market instantly. Take a course, get a little bit of foundation, so you kind of like have an idea. Stick with a niche that interests you. So it's like, I always say like in trading, when you're kind of getting into it, you go through these phases where like, you start off, you don't know anything, so you're scouring YouTube.
Yep.
And then maybe you find something that interests you, whether it's small caps or it's options or whatever. And like, kind of just like study that a little bit, but find what you gravitate towards more. And then once you really like figure out you jive with a style or something that really interests you, stick with it. And stick with it for like at least like a year, because if you hop around too much too early, you're never going to gain, like you're never going to learn anything even in a year. It's like it takes years and years. And like I always love reminding myself, like this profession, there's no barrier to entry. Anyone can start and do it tomorrow.
Yep.
But then you always think about high-paying professions. What does a doctor do? Well, they go to school for 8 years, 10 years. What does a lawyer do? Same thing. But so many people in trading don't ever think about that. And it's like, so really adopt that mindset as well. As another thing people can do is understand it's going to take a lot longer than you think. But like if you stick with it and give it a solid 5 years, it'll start to click. It will. It's like, it's almost inevitable. Like it will start to click as long as you can, number one, survive, and number two, just keep like adapting, like, okay, like I will grow, I will learn. So, dig around YouTube, find a style that makes sense to you, adopt that mindset, and find a mentor.
Awesome. Well, look, Tanner, how can people find out more about you, my man?
So I'm on Instagram at The Strong Trader. I'm also on Twitter, or X, I guess you should call it.
Yep.
At The Strong Trader, same thing. I'm mainly active on those two platforms. Those are my main ones.
Perfect.
In my Instagram bio, if anyone's interested in working with me, I do one-on-one coaching, and there's a link for people to fill out for like an application.
Yep.
So I don't just pick anyone. Like I want to make sure we vibe and stuff like that. So I have that in my bio. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, perfect, Tanner. Look, brother, it was great meeting you and a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thank you, bro. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.